Are in your office, working on your daily dental practice tasks, when your receptionist announces that you have a call waiting. You have advised your staff that you don't want to speak with any cold calling salespeople, but somehow this call got through to you directly. After some brief pleasantries, the salesperson tells you that you probably qualify for a federal R&D tax credit just by using CAD/CAM and CBCT and by doing complex cases. They offer to set up a Zoom between you and their boss so he can explain why you deserve a tax credit and about their method. Should you schedule the Zoom call, or should you come up with an excuse and bring this call to your CPA for their opinion? This article outlines how dentists can determine whether and when an R&D tax credit makes sense for their practice, and whether it aligns with their tax risk position. Before your dental practice claims the R&D credit, you need to understand the benefits and burdens of claiming the R&D tax credit. Ultimately, it explains why the adage, "Success is 90% preparation and 10% perspiration," fits this situation perfectly. As a dental professional, you perform work every day that eases patients' pain, improves patients' health, and enhances patients' beauty. Many dentists don't realize that experimentation often occurs during routine dental tasks. In his 2014 article, The Ethics of Experimenting in Dental Practice, Journal of the American College of Dentists, 2014 Summer, 81-3, 31-40, D.W. Chambers stated that the belief that practitioners do not experiment but only use the best results reported in the literature is false. Even to a limited extent, customizing materials and methods to patients' needs or particular circumstances, dentists regularly experiment with practices and methods that are highly likely to succeed. What the IRS really means by R&D in dentistry. The IRS allows a significant tax credit for research and experimentation work performed in the U.S. But the IRS's definition of R&D doesn't always align with common usage of the term R&D. The IRS R&D credit isn't a reward for owning advanced equipment. It's for work that resolves technical uncertainty in developing or improving a process, product, or software in your business. The IRS defines R&D as work that meets the four-part test, which consists of tests of technical uncertainty, technological in nature, business component, and process of experimentation. Much dental work can meet these requirements, except learning to use commercially available dental equipment or performing routine procedures are specifically not allowed. The IRS experimental process requirements in a dental context require documentation and planning that demonstrate a formal experimental process. Dental work that looks like routine care versus when it is part of a documented project. Most chairside work, crowns, implants, aligner cases, CAD/CAM workflows, hygiene protocols, is considered the application of existing technology and thus is not eligible for the R&D tax credit. In Seymour Milling Company versus Commissioner, TC Memo 2019-37, the tax court found that there was no evidence of a methodical plan involving a series of trials to test a hypothesis, analyze data, refine hypothesis, and retest. Seymour was denied the tax credit because they couldn't prove they did real scientific experiments. They just tried things and adjusted. However, a trial-and-error methodology, as practiced extensively by one of America's all-time greatest R&D practitioners, Thomas Edison, is used every day by thousands of American firms to demonstrate compliance with the requirements for the R&D credit. Every day, firms around the U.S. are being granted millions of dollars of R&D tax credits by the IRS in fields as varied as insurance, software development, agriculture, and construction. The difference between these businesses and your dental practice is that they have a methodical plan involving a series of trials to test a hypothesis, analyze data, refine, and retest. Just like in The Wizard of Oz, where the Great Oz tells the Cowardly Lion that what he is missing is a medal of courage, most dentists are missing a modus operandi, or blueprint of R&D, needed to claim the credit. Genuine experimentation in dentistry requires a formal plan that deals with a subset of a dentist's patients, forming a cohort. Section 41D4B of the Internal Revenue Code outlines the adaptation exclusion for the R&D tax credit. It specifies that any research related to adapting an existing business component, a product, process, or software, to a particular customer's requirement or need does not qualify as research for the tax credit, and that customizing a restoration or appliance for individual patients is adaptation, not developing a new business component. This limits a dentist's ability to take credit for working on an individual patient. For example, perhaps you do many of the same procedures, such as root canals. Doing a single root canal might not qualify, but experimenting by slightly varying the procedure with the cohort and tracking the results could bring your work closer to the Internal Revenue Code requirements for research. In rare cases, a dental group might be developing novel biomaterials, new digital algorithms, or proprietary clinical protocols. But this type of experimentation is not common. To be granted the credit, a practice must have documented a defined technical uncertainty, a formal hypothesis, identified alternatives, a planned testing sequence, data analysis, and refinement. This is why day-to-day dentistry usually doesn't qualify. The rest of this article explains how to characterize that day-to-day work into a qualifying project that might demonstrate the R&D performed. And this could lead to a significant tax credit. Before filing for the R&D tax credit, you should ensure that you have hired an advisor who can work with you to create technical uncertainty memos, hypotheses and alternatives, protocols or testing plans, data logs, and analysis plans to meet the IRS requirements and facilitate an audit if needed. The situation for a dental practice seeking a tax credit is not dissimilar to that of any business seeking the credit. The documentation required is not the type normally gathered and archived. Everyday audits of R&D tax credits involve a CPA trying to explain to an IRS agent why their client doesn't have the documentation needed to prove the credit. Following the recommendations in this article will ensure that you have already addressed these requirements. Why R&D credit claims from dental practices are risky without real experimentation. If you've been told that you already qualify just by using CAD/CAM or CBCT, you should treat that as a red flag rather than a green light. The idea that complex dentistry automatically qualifies is just wrong. A more accurate statement is properly documented dentistry possibly qualifies. Longtime IRS R&D experts have a different opinion on why the R&D tax credit sometimes fails for dental practices. R&D tax credits usually fail because the R&D tax credit project hasn't been formally created and formally documented. Like the biblical quote that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God, the chances of a dental tax credit qualifying with the IRS are slim to none unless the credit has been pre-planned. IRS agents are taught not to accept pre-configured or purchased R&D tax credits. Each R&D tax credit filing must be custom-built for that dental practice. Trying to file for an R&D credit without first designing the R&D project will likely lead to audits, repayments, and distraction from your core practice management. Dentists should formalize their experimentation and record-keeping procedures before the time comes to file your tax return. If you wait until filing time, calendar or fiscal, to start collecting the documentation needed, you might run into trouble with the IRS. Maybe not right away, but remember that the IRS agent can examine tax returns for the past 3 years or longer in some cases. You should say no to non-qualifying claims being sold by promoters and yes to expertly designed and documented R&D credits based on your specific practice. The success of your dental R&D tax credit will be closely related to the preparation your consultant has used to create your credit. How to approach the R&D credit in your practice. 1. Parse any R&D pitch to your dental CPA before signing anything with an R&D consultant. 2. Ask whether you can truly run a documented project, uncertainty, alternatives, testing, measurement, rather than just complex cases. 3. Decide if you are willing to build and maintain that documentation during the year. 4. The answer is no. Focus on more straightforward, proven tax strategies instead. Smart tax planning protects your practice and supports long-term growth of your investment. The R&D credit can be very valuable in well-documented situations. If your practice truly wants to explore whether an R&D credit could make sense, the most defensible way to do it is to plan any potential R&D project well before tax time, in close coordination with your dental CPA and other R&D advisors. That planning should focus on whether there is real technical uncertainty to resolve, whether the work relies on hard science, and whether you can commit to documenting a process of experimentation over time, rather than trying to relabel routine dentistry after the fact.